Welcome to members and welcome to members of the public. Just before I start the meeting proper, I would, on behalf of the council, I'm sure you would agree with me to welcome some attendees from Torbay Council today. We have Councillor Mark Kingscote, who's the chair of the Torbay Development Management Committee. Well, Derek Mills was going to be here, but he's unfortunately had to go elsewhere. Kevin Moet, who's the Executive Head of Assets and Business Services for the Authority. Helen Addison, Team Leader Development Manager, which is the opposite number to Peter. So we welcome them here today. Just a little bit of background, and particularly for members of the public who are watching the webcast. Torbay Council is visiting Plymouth Planning Committee as part of the Plymouth City Council Torbay Council Collaboration Agreement, which will be presented to Plymouth City Council Cabinet on 16th of January this year. And the very brief background to that: the officers in Strategic and Planning Infrastructure Department undertook a planning improvement review for Torbay's development management functions in December 2016 to January 2017 at the request of Torbay Council. In June 2017, Torbay's Mayor formally asked its Chief Executive to explore a suitable partnership arrangement with a nearby local planning authority for the delivery of its spatial planning functions. In August 2017, Torbay's Chief Executive then formally wrote to Plymouth City Council indicating the desire to explore entering into a long-term arrangement between the two councils to deliver a shared spatial planning service and associated functions. Between January and March 2018, officers from both councils will be considering the scope of a collaboration agreement from the existing functions within Torbay's Spatial Planning Service and Plymouth Strategic Planning and Infrastructure Department. A report will be taken to our Cabinet on 27th of March 2018 to give a final decision as to the extent of the collaboration between the two authorities. This work is independent from the contractual arrangements that is being progressed between Torbay and Plymouth for Children's Services, which has a different context and rationale. However, there are clear synergies and potential wider benefits that could emerge in the future as the two programmes develop. Okay, welcome to all of you from Torbay. Thank you. Right, first item on the agenda is therefore apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Sparling, and I believe Councillor Tuffing is subbing for that. Thank you. Apologies from Councillor Kelly, and Councillor Mahoney, I believe, is substituting for that. Okay. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest today? No. Okay. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. They have been circulated. Is it your agreed that I sign these as a true copy? Agreed? Okay. Okay. Chair's urgent business. There is no urgent business today. Questions from members of the public. There are no questions from members of the public. Item 6 is planning applications for consideration. And the first application is 9292 Plymouth Stock Road, Plymouth. And Peter, would you explain about the sickness absence today, please? Yeah.
Yeah, I apologise, members. The officer who was going to be giving the presentation for this item and for the next item as well, Judge John Douglas, unfortunately has come down sick and is not able to attend today. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give the presentation for both items. I've got a Lou here to help me to explain particularly the first application and actually to be my assistant in pressing the buttons for the slides. So between the two of us, we'll be able to hopefully give you a comprehensive presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Well, let's start the application.
Okay, this application in Plymstock Road is for a first floor and part ground floor extension to an existing care home, and also to include rear parking. It's got a quite complicated planning history, so if you will bear with me, I'll try and make it as simple as possible, but it is important that members understand the history to this site. There were two former houses on this site which were linked together to form a single building. This was following a planning application in 2006. Initially, the application for the care home was refused by the planning authority, but it was allowed at appeal. Then if we move on to 2009, the applicant made two concurrent applications which looked at undertaking some modest extensions to the care home and also a larger extension for a 1- and 2-storey extension with 6 parking spaces to the rear. The smaller application was granted, the larger application was refused. The refused application went to appeal, and the inspector upheld the appeal, so it was refused. Then, and that was due to the impacts on the amenity to number 94, Plymstock Road. There was a further application made in 2009 for an extension similar to the first one, which was refused. However, it addressed a number of concerns with regard to reducing the height of the extension and moving it further away from the boundary. It also, with regard to the parking spaces, it restricted that to a daytime use only. This application again was refused by the planning authority, but this time the inspector allowed the appeal, so therefore it was granted. This larger extension has not yet been constructed in full. However, there has been a commencement to this development, and officers are satisfied that this commencement took place within 3 years of granting the consent in accordance with the condition, and therefore, as far as officers are concerned, this is an extant permission, i.e. At any time the developer could undertake and complete these works. I know the applicant will speak about the bedrooms and number of bedrooms that is provided for this development, but as far as officers are concerned, subsequent to the approval of that application in 2009, there would be 45 bed spaces to the care home. Again, that's quite important. Then if we can move forward to 2017, in summer 2017, a further planning application was submitted for a further extension to the care home, and this extension was for the side which is next to number 88 Plymstock Road. And with the extant permission plus this new application, it would have brought the number of bed spaces in officers' view to 54. This application was again refused by the planning authority. Rather than appeal that decision, the applicant has resubmitted an amended application, and you'll be pleased to hear this is the application we have before us today. That previous application was refused on the detrimental impact on neighbouring residential amenities and the increase in intensity and harmful to the residential character, and that is outlined in full in the report and the addendum report. Prior to the applicant submitting this current application, there was some positive feedback by the officers to this new application. However, when the application was submitted, there was a further assessment undertaken by officers with site visits, and also there was a strong objection received from number 88 Plymstock Road. And that has led to the recommendation today for refusal. If I can just now point to the slides, and if I can just ask Lou to help with this. You can see here the location of the application site in Plymstock Road, and go to the next slide. This is just a visual of the site. It's the Oasis Care Home. Okay, go on to the next one, please. This slide, and I don't know, Lou, if you can just help with this, it shows the extant consent. So this is the application that has previously been approved but hasn't been implemented yet. Okay, Lou.
Right, thank you, Chair. So just to take us briefly through the extent permission, where I've got the cursor there within the red outline. That basically is where the extent permission would be built. So what they've proposed there is 7 beds at ground floor level, which comes in as like an L shape, and that at lower ground floor level you've got 5 additional bedrooms. So altogether the extent permission allows for 12 bed spaces. So this is the elevation from the rear, from the north of the property, where you've got the property at number 90 on the left and 92 on the right. And the extent permission would ideally sit in between the 2 properties where the shed's currently at the moment. So what we have here on this slide is a proposed site plan which excludes the extent permission. And this effectively is the proposal we have at hand that we're discussing today. Moving on to the next slide, the proposed ground floor plan for the current application. What we've got is they've proposed, we've proposed 15 bed spaces at ground floor level. And the existing currently here at ground floor level is 22. So those are your proposed and your existing ground floor plans.
Could you just show, Lou, where number 88 Plymstock Road is?
Right, number 88 Plymstock Road is here where this dark shadow is. This is basically where there's a side elevation window which is situated at first floor level. And we'll go. I'll show you a better picture on a photograph later on in the slides. But the first floor bedroom is situated round about there, which is directly opposite where the proposed extension would go. So this is ground floor level. It's not visible from ground floor at 88. But here is just a magnified slide of the proposed ground floor plan. For the new for the existing proposal. Here at first floor level, what we've got is it is proposed that there would be an additional 12 bedrooms at first floor level, which, if you just follow through with my cursor, it'll adjoin the property at number 92 with 2 bedrooms linked into property number 90, which forms like a loop. And the new bedrooms at first floor level will sort of like will be situated there where I've got the cursor. That's where all the new bedrooms will be in situ. I'd also like to bring to the attention of the committee the proposed new plans. It also includes oriel windows. So these oriel windows, there's 3 of them to the east, which fronts 88 bedroom, the bedroom at first floor level is round about here. So the oriel windows will effectively be obscured round about where the cursor is here, but it'll be visible. You'll be able to view the external from round about here where I've got the cursor. So you'll be looking towards the north from here, and towards the south. Going back this way. So there's 3 proposed new windows at first floor level, as well as a window which is an oriel, which is just a flat window that will include bed spaces up on the eastern elevation. So that's basically your first floor plan
Okay.
as existing and proposed.
Yeah. So basically, the distance between number 88 and the care home with the extension would not meet the guidelines set out in the supplementary planning document. However, the applicant has made some amendments to the previously refused permission, and as Alu mentioned, particularly with the oriel windows, and also with the angle of the roof, which the applicant considers mitigates the impact of that development on number 88. It is, however, in officers' view, this isn't sufficient for officers to approve the application. There is an addendum reports submitted with this application, which is merely clarification of some of these points and just a minor correction. However, in summary, what officers consider is that members should balance the harm caused by this development on neighbours, and particularly number 88 Plymstock Road, against the benefits of the care home to provide much needed support for elderly members of the community. In officers' view, the balance is weighted towards the harm to the neighbour, and for this reason the recommendation is to refuse due to the detrimental impact on the neighbouring residential amenities as outlined in this report. Thank you very much.
Okay, that concludes the officer's presentation. I have two speakers on this particular application today. First one is an objector, Mrs. Heather Eastman. Would you like to come forward, Mrs. Eastman? Sorry? Yeah.
If I could just say to members, quite unusually, the speaker has asked to play a very short audio as part of her presentation. Officers have reviewed this recording prior to the committee, and although officers cannot vouch for its accuracy, because obviously it has been recorded by the objector, we feel it does conform within the Code of Good Practice for Planning Committee. Thank you.
All right. Mrs. Eastman, you have 5 minutes to address the committee, and obviously your audio thing will have to come within that 5 minutes. So whenever you're ready, and then we will remind you 1 minute before the end of that time. Okay? So whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Thank you. We live at number 88. We're just over the fence from where they're proposing to erect an extension that will create a 2-storey building in excess of 43 metres long. Our house is less than 9 metres. It will be like living next door to a prison. The applicant has acknowledged that there's an impact on us, so I'll just paint a picture for you. The 4 new windows that will look directly into our front and rear gardens, as well as the outside space to the front, which currently is private, that's going to make us feel terribly overlooked. The extension will be obtrusive, dominant and overbearing in our habitable areas. It will significantly reduce light, particularly sunlight, coming into our house. We'll lose the sun from our outdoor lounge area at the rear. Our garden is north-facing, so this is the only area that is sheltered and gets late afternoon and evening sun. The current pleasant outlook from our bedroom window, which extends over 20 miles, will be replaced with a view of a wall and a roof. At its closest point, the extension will be around 4.1 metres from us, not 7 metres as the application states, or indeed the 12 metres that planning guidelines require. When combined with the extant application, there will be a 40% rise in residents, so noise will increase from the kitchen, which is already very noisy, but will be made larger and have an additional window, and from some of the more confused residents that suffer from dementia, who, when distressed, often shout out and scream. I'd like to play you that brief recording now, and I apologise in advance if you find it offensive. am a qualified nurse and I have a 92-year-old mother-in-law who has the illness, so I do understand. It's just that it's just my home, and it's quite distressing to hear. And it would get worse because the new bedrooms will be closer and at the same level as our bedroom. All of these planning issues are recognised in the 2 refusal notices and are clearly in breach of numerous CS policies and planning guidelines. We gather there is a shortage of care home bedrooms in Plymouth, but even when there is a benefit to the wider community, the amenity of existing residents has to be safeguarded. If you're still in doubt, we would ask you to bear in mind that Oasis already have an extant application which we have not objected to, so we are not against development per se. It was granted on appeal and has already started, and they've been able to do this for the last 8 years, and it would give them 47 bedrooms. There's no action forced on them to make any other changes, so this will give them most of the expansion that they're looking for. The application we're talking about here today will give them a total of 49. That's a net gain of just 2 bedrooms. That represents an increase of less than 1% of beds in Plymstock. On the subject of bedrooms, the applicant states that they have 33 currently. That's a very recent change. In June 2017, the original application listed 35. Their CQC registration is for 35, and the Plymouth Online Directory very recently, just before Christmas, lists it at 35. In the application, there are references to costs, including economies of scale and viable funding options. That's understandable after all. Oasis are a business, not a charity. But these benefits to the applicant come at a great cost to our amenity. In any case, as I understand it, finances are not a planning matter. The applicant has not attempted to work with us, either during the design stage or since. We've expressed
1 minute
our
remaining.
concerns. We've expressed our concerns in both the original application and the resubmission, so they understand our anxieties and accept that there is an impact on us. And it seems to us that their key aspiration of linking the whole upper floor could easily be achieved with much less harm to our amenity. We've managed to come up with ideas. Neither the applicant, their agent, nor our councillor live at the site. We do. And if this were to go ahead, we would be affected every single day. The harm to us is severe, and it is not outweighed by other benefits, and we therefore ask that this application be refused. If it is granted today, it's the end of the road for us. We have no right of appeal. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Ms Eastman. Thank you. The next speaker we have is Mr Steve Shirley. Is that the applicant, I believe? Yeah. Would you like to come forward, Mr Shirley? Welcome to the committee, Mr Shirley. You appreciate you'll have 5 minutes to address the committee. We will remind you 1 minute before the end of that period.
Sure.
So, in your own time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve Shirley, the joint owner with my wife of the Oasis Care Home, and I'm speaking in support of this planning application. Firstly, in order to put this proposal into perspective, I'd like to give a quick overview of the changes in the nature of providing care in the last few years. Social services are rightly enabling people to choose to stay in their own homes for far longer than they would have been able to in the past by offering considerably more home care support. As a result, when it finally becomes necessary for people to be offered 24-hour residential care, they are in need of a considerably greater amount of physical care and support than in the past. There was on average a much lower spectrum of service user needs. Now almost everyone in care is there because they desperately need it. This in turn necessitates larger quantities of equipment for their care and renders small room sizes inadequate for the manoeuvring of nursing beds, hoists, etc. With the ever-increasing care demands and the ever-increasing statutory administrative burdens, staffing per resident has increased dramatically in the last few years and continues to do so. We now employ over 40 staff to provide the standard of care required for 33 clients. This has brought into question the viability of the home at its present size. We currently operate 33 rooms, some of which are at the old standard of 10 square metres without en-suite facilities. We have extant planning permission for another 12 rooms. However, we would lose 6 of the existing rooms, 1 to increase the size of the kitchen, 1 to increase the size of the laundry, and 4 to create larger rooms with private en-suite facilities. not to mention storage space for all the extra equipment we now require. I'm ashamed to say that currently we often have to store some of it in the loungers. This situation makes the construction of the extant permission unjustifiable economically. We have been quoted £500,000 plus VAT. That is in excess of £100,000 per room, which simply isn't viable. The increase in usable room numbers of this proposal in front of you, when combined with the extant permission, allows an economically viable development and the continued viability of the home into the future, with the added benefit of a proportionate increase in employment and improved accommodation for service users. I would also like to add that Plymouth City Council is developing joint local plan Dev 7 and SHMNA evidence sets out that the city needs 1,188 more care beds in the city. The preference of the Care Quality Commission being for these beds to be in smaller care homes, which criteria this proposal meets. Incidentally, new care home developments tend to be very large scale to take advantage of the economies of scale and do not meet the Care Quality Commission's preferred criteria for the best outcome for service users' care on account of being far more institutionalised due to their sheer size, which does make me wonder how the Council is going to achieve this numerical objective of 1,188 additional care beds. The proposed extension also has the significant added benefit of linking the two separate first floor areas of the home. Currently, service users and staff have to venture through the ground floor when moving from one first floor to the other. On a daily basis and in an emergency, this new configuration would be far preferable. I would also like to make the point that considering permission was given to number 88 to build a two-storey house in place of a bungalow with a large side window on the first floor, which had a much greater effect on light and overlooking on our rooms, that I consider the effect this proposal on number 88 is overstated in comparison. The highest point of the proposal opposite this window, after completing the requested alterations to our plans, is 10 metres away and only approximately 1.5 metres higher than existing. That really is a small angle in relation to the whole vertical face of the window, particularly when you bear in mind that there are also two other, albeit smaller, rear windows giving light and outlook to this room. Also, I would add that the bedroom windows of our proposal are very carefully designed to not overlook or compromise the privacy of number 88, and any noisy service users would not be placed in these sensitive rooms. In conclusion, I hope you will consider the benefits that our service brings to the city and its current and future viability when set against the effects on number 88. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Shirley. Thank you. Right. We're now going to throw that open to the committee. Anybody wish to speak? Councillor Stevens.
Just about there. Thanks ever so much. Firstly, many congratulations in getting the word synergies into your opening remarks. That set a very high bar for the rest of us for the coming year. Secondly, very disappointed that Councillor Leaves isn't speaking or even here, given that's the reason we've had the report to the committee, which of course there is a cost to. This is a privilege that we all have as councillors that I certainly wouldn't want to see taken away, but it makes it just that little bit harder to defend every time when somebody doesn't come along to excuse me, explain why it should be a committee decision. I went on the site visit with the Vice Chair, and from what I understand, some other people may have been to have a look themselves at different points when convenient to them. I have tremendous sympathy with Mrs. Eastman and the point she made. The views that we saw, I think, I don't know if the Vice Chair would agree, were extremely instructive yesterday. And the loss of outlook, which should not be confused with loss of a view. Anyone who's nerdy enough to come to the number of planning committee meetings that most of us do will know the difference. But there is a very, very big drop in the outlook that they would have from the windows looking over the fence to currently look beyond the existing level of the care home. I understand the balance that needs to be drawn, and we've had the needs of the care home sector and the benefits it would bring, and I don't think anybody should doubt that. But our job is to balance things, and if we can make sure that planning laws and policies are complied with, which is our job, then I think the only decision would be to back our officers and refuse the application. That's where I am at the moment, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Stevens. I accept entirely your point about member referrals, but we're not. Right, okay. Vice Chair, please.
Thank you, Chair. The first thing, there is absolutely no doubt in my mind that Plymouth is in desperate need, and I say desperate need, of more beds for our elderly population and our ageing population. So in some respects, I completely understand and support this application. However, there was something that I have to disagree with Mr. Shirley on, because he said about this, the neighbours didn't object when, you know, for other applications. This new build will block their outlook. Yesterday we went on the site visit. It was a beautiful sunny afternoon. The sun terrace was lit up. With this new build, they will not get that sun. I was quite disturbed actually listening to the recording as well, and for those new bedrooms to be so close to someone else's bedroom. And my father-in-law has dementia and it never stops. He could be screaming at 2 o'clock in the morning. These people will have no quality of life, which is not a planning consideration, but it will have a detrimental impact on the future. So with that in mind, I think that's all I have to say really. Is I do support the officer's recommendation in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Councillor Pengelly.
Thank you, Chair. I agree entirely with Councillor Stevens and our Vice Chair on the reasons for refusal. I think we've had a very full verbal report and a very full written report. And it is, as Councillor Stevens said, at the end of the day, you have to balance what harm it will do to neighbours and the advantage of the care home. And I think I definitely agree with the officers to come down on the side of the neighbour on what harm it will do there. So I really would support the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pengelly. Anybody else wish to? Councillor Ball. Sorry.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I, excuse me, could I just ask a question about car parking? I note that there are currently 9 spaces in the front, and there are proposed 9 spaces at the rear. And I presume the access is going to be down on the lower side of the diagram. Now, is that the orientation? Is that the west side or the? It's the east side. Thank you.
That's the east side.
But looking at a closer view of that diagram, looking at that side path going down there are projections coming out. Are they on the first floor or the second floor? Sorry, on the ground floor or the second floor? Sorry, I'll clarify that. Are they on the ground floor, the projections coming out, or on the first floor?
Talking about the windows, are you? Is it Oriel windows, or what do you call them?
I mean, I think we can clarify, from my understanding, that they're on the first floor, unless Sir Lou can clarify. I mean, I think from our highways point of view, we have consulted with the transport officer, and the transport officer is satisfied that there is sufficient access for cars to go down that side route, and it's not going to create any safety issue. So the width is wide enough.
Okay, fine with cars, I understand that. But what about lorries?
Does anybody want to ask?
Yeah, okay, there we go. Right. I mean, obviously there is going to be some comings and goings as part of the operation of the care home. My understanding is there is already a condition in place with regard to the extent planning consent. I'm just asking Luke.
Yeah. The the parking to the rear will only be accessible to our staff members. So there's 9 parking spaces to the rear of the property, and there's 9 to the forward of the principal elevation. But that will only be accessed via condition by our staff members only.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else wish to speak? In that case, I'm going to move to the vote. The recommendation on page 19 is to refuse for the reasons outlined. Sorry, did you wish to speak, Councillor Watt? Did you want to speak? Yes, sorry.
Could you just be absolutely clear, Chair, that if we are agreeing with the officers to refuse, we are voting yes?
That would be my take on the proceedings. Yeah. So the recommendation, let me, quite happy to clarify that for you guys. On your page 19 is to refuse for the reasons outlined. By pressing yes, you are agreeing that the application is refused, if you were to vote that way. Okay, so we'll leave it out. So with that, I'm going to ask Helen to set the voting in train. For those of you not here, we've got 20 seconds to do this. So, okay. Oh, wow. Well, that's the first time that's happened, isn't it? Right. Well, I've got on my screen, or I did have, that we had, yeah, is it back up? 13 in favour of the recommendation, no abstentions, and nobody voting no. So the resolution to refuse has been passed. Agreed? Okay. Thank you. That brings us on to item 2 on the agenda, Brettonside Bus Station, Brettonside. The case officer again would have been John Douglas, so I'm going to ask Peter Ford to outline this application to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. This is an unusual report to take to members because it forms part of the Highways Act. If you can refer to the Constitution, there is all...
Wait, Peter, we've got the wrong slide up.
Oh,
sorry,
hello.
Can we
come back and do it?
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Could you get the other one on, please?
Yeah. Don't worry. We just want to get this absolutely right, so we'll just make sure we get this. Here we are. Item 2, Brettonside Bus Station. Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Ilu. Thank you. Okay. Right, carry on, Peter.
Okay, I'll start again. Yes, this report is before you because it is a stopping up order. And as required under the Constitution, all stopping up orders need to be determined by Planning Committee. Some of you will recall the last stopping up order we had at the Planning Committee was back in 2015, which relates to exactly the same site as this. This relates to the Drake's Leisure Complex at Brettonside. The application was approved back in 2015, and construction of that site, as you well know, is underway. So previously the stopping up order was approved. but plans have been slightly amended due to a Section 73 application that has subsequently come forward. So, Lou, could you just press the... yes, thank you. So this is the site in question. It is the stopping up of the subway on the Charles Cross side of Exeter Street. It is a requirement for this to be consulted on and to come to committee to agree the order. The stopping up order means that the subway goes from a public access way to a private access way and will be used to form part of the access to the car park for the new Drake Leisure development. The stopping up order has been consulted on, and you can see the consultees. You may think is quite an eclectic list of consultees. They are the required consultees for this type of order. This has been consulted on, and then no objections have been received. The full closure of the subway, just to reassure members, will only be allowed when the new pedestrian crossing is in place. There will in reality be a temporary arrangement while the works are carried out, as with all in developments of this type, and obviously the importance of this particular road in getting in and out of Plymouth City Centre. So those arrangements are subject to a separate order which will be dealt with by the portfolio holder. But basically, in summary, this stopping up order is very, very similar to the one which was previously approved by the Planning Committee. The only reason why it's coming to the committee today is because of the amendments to the planning consent, and therefore minor amendments to the actual stopping up order itself. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Anybody wish to speak on this item? Right. Oh, so, Councillor Pengelly, and then followed by Councillor Toffey.
Just to say that I think it's great news that Drake's Leisure Complex, whatever it is they're going to call it, is actually on its way and it's being built, and these are things that are going to help it move along. As you say, this will be used eventually to get from the car park, from the leisure centre to the car park, which is a safe way of crossing a road. But in the meantime, we'll have a pathway over the top, a pedestrian crossing over the top. I think it's great news because it means everything's moving on. Let's hope it moves on even quicker than it is at the moment.
Thank you, Councillor Pengelly. Councillor Toffey.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome it. It happens to be in my ward, so I'm very pleased to see it's progressing. I would just voice my disappointment that in regard to this scheme, we were not able to get...
Councillor Pengelly, can you put your microphone off, please? Thank you.
Sorry. Yeah, my disappointment that we were not able to get a way to have a pedestrian crossing into Charles Church, which I'm sure disappoints us all. And I think it's something we need to keep in our minds at some time in the future, because I think it's important that we get the opportunity for the public to see all that monument to the Second World War. But for this stopping up of this particular set of steps, I fully support, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak? No. Okay, I'm going to move to the vote now. Yeah, come on.
Yeah, just for sake of completeness, just to refer to the addendum report, and it's the actual recommendation is not actually to grant, but to confirm the public path stopping up order. Okay.
Yeah, I had noticed that on para 13, so we were that I was going to use that word, that particular phraseology. So you're agreeing, if you vote for the recommendation, which on 14, which is to grant, you're agreeing to the public path stopping up order be made. Okay. We move to the vote, please, Helen. Okay. We have a 20-second delay on this for members of the public or anybody. Well, that's why it takes a little bit longer on these. Okay, that's unanimously passed, and that's agreed. Thank you. That brings us on to item 7, which is the planning applications already issued. You have that list circulated with your agenda. Is that noted? Item 8 is appeal decisions. They have been circulated. Does anybody wish to raise anything on those? Agreed. Item 9 is exempt business. There is none. So with that, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance.
Okay, but before you all jump off, we have, as we emailed you prior to the committee, we have arranged for some additional training. We've got a representative from public, as it says, short agenda, so someone from Public Health England, Justine Womack, would like to give a short presentation. It would take no longer than half an hour to give you some additional advice with regard to fast food takeaways. This particular policy is going through the joint local plan and has been subject to a number of applications which have been before planning committee in recent months. I understand that Justine's train arrives at Plymouth Station at 2:30 if it's on time, and so she is making her way to the council chamber as we speak. But obviously she hasn't arrived yet. So can I suggest we have a short adjournment, if that's okay, Chair?
We'll have a 5-minute comfort break now. 5 minutes, okay?